The restaurant smells like money and secrets when Aria Torres pushes through the service entrance at exactly 5:43 p.m., 17 minutes, before Salvatore's opens its doors to Chicago's elite. She's wearing the same black dress she's worn for 3 years of evening shifts, the fabric thin at the elbows, the hem coming loose on one side where she hasn't had time to stitch it properly. Her dark hair is pulled back tight, secured with a clip that cost $2 at the drugstore near her studio apartment in Pilsen. The kitchen is already in chaos. Line cooks moving with choreographed precision, flames leaping from pans, the head chef barking orders in Italian that Aria has learned to interpret through context, rather than actual understanding. She ties her apron, checks her section assignments, and begins the mental preparation that turns her into someone else for the next 6 hours. Someone polished. Someone who doesn't flinch when customers spend more on a single bottle of wine than she makes in a week. Her life exists in careful compartments. Morning shift at the coffee shop on West Division, noon to 3 at the dry cleaner where Mrs. Chen pays her under the table, then Salvatore's from 6 until close. 3 jobs totaling 72 hours a week, generating just enough money to cover rent, her brother's medical bills, and the monthly payment to the lawyer who's supposed to be helping with Marco's case. Supposed to be the operative phrase, since the last 3 months have produced exactly 0 progress and a lot of expensive phone calls that go nowhere. That was 8 months ago. The night police planted drugs in Marco's backpack and arrested him despite Aria's protests. Since then, her life has become a single-minded mission. Make money, pay the lawyer, keep Marco's spirits up during weekly jail visits, and survive on 4 hours of sleep and spite. If you're enjoying this story so far, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Drop a comment telling me where in the world you're watching from. I love hearing from you. Tonight, Salvatore's is expecting a full house. Valentine's Day is 3 days away, which means couples performing reconnaissance, testing restaurants before committing to the actual evening. Aria moves through her section with practiced efficiency, filling water glasses, presenting menus, recommending the risotto to people who want to seem adventurous without actually taking risks. She's good at reading people. Has to be. Understanding what customers want before they articulate it means better tips. And better tips mean Marco's lawyer gets paid on time. She watches body language, listens to tone, adjusts her service style to match their expectations. The couple at table 7 wants efficiency and discretion. The business dinner at table 9 needs her to be invisible. The anniversary celebration at table 12 wants warmth and engagement. It's table 15 that changes everything. The reservation comes through at 7:47 p.m., 47 minutes into her shift. Marco, the host, appears at her elbow with an expression she's never seen before, something between reverence and fear. VIP just seated in your section, he says quietly. Corner booth. He always requests that table when he comes. Who is he? Aria asks, already moving toward the drink station. Dominic Andretti. Marco's voice drops even lower. He owns half the restaurants in this neighborhood, maybe more. Very important. Very private. Don't ask questions, don't linger. Just give him exactly what he wants. The name means nothing to Aria, but the way Marco says it means everything. She's worked in the Chicago service industry long enough to understand that certain customers exist in different atmospheres than others. Men who command space without raising their voices. Men whose presence makes managers nervous and staff careful. She approaches table 15 with her professional mask firmly in place. Notepad ready, smile calibrated to be warm but not invasive. The corner booth is positioned to provide maximum visibility of the restaurant while offering privacy through strategic placement of decorative screens and careful lighting. The man seated there makes her breath catch for reasons she can't immediately identify. He's perhaps 35, maybe 36, with dark hair swept back from a face that looks carved rather than grown. Sharp cheekbones, strong jaw, olive complexion that suggests Italian heritage. He wears a charcoal suit that fits like it was made specifically for his body, which it probably was, and a watch that catches the light in ways that suggest serious money. His hands rest on the white tablecloth with complete stillness. No nervous gestures, no fidgeting, complete control. But it's his eyes that stop her. Dark brown, almost black in the restaurant's ambient lighting, and focused on her with an intensity that feels physical. He's not looking at her the way customers usually do, with vague acknowledgement or mild interest or occasionally unwelcome attraction. He's looking at her like she's a puzzle he's trying to solve, like something about her presence has disrupted something in his carefully controlled world. Good evening, Aria says, her voice steady despite the strange flutter in her chest. "Can I start you with something to drink?" He doesn't respond immediately. Instead, he inhales, and Aria watches his entire body go rigid. His hands, which had been resting calmly on the table, curl into fists. His jaw clenches. A muscle beneath his right eye twitches. Something is wrong. Aria's instincts, honed by years of service, work, and survival, start screaming warnings she doesn't understand. "Sir?" She tries again. What are you wearing?" His voice is low, controlled, but carrying an undercurrent of something that might be shock or anger or recognition. She can't tell which. The question is so unexpected that Aria takes a step backward. "I'm sorry? Your perfume." His eyes haven't left her face. "What is it?" Aria's hand goes unconsciously to her throat, where she'd applied the scent before her shift. It's the only luxury she allows herself. The single beautiful thing in a life stripped down to bare survival. The bottle is old, maybe 20 years old, given to her by her grandmother Rosa before she died 5 years ago. "This belonged to your great-grandmother," Rosa had said, pressing the crystal bottle into Aria's hands with trembling fingers. "She brought it from Italy when she came to America in 1952. It's the only thing she carried that had real value. Keep it safe. Only wear it on special occasions, or when you need to feel connected to where you came from." Aria wears it 3, maybe 4 times a year. Tonight isn't special, she just needed the reminder that she came from people who survived impossible things, people who crossed oceans and built lives from nothing. She'd needed that strength before facing another shift where she'd smile at wealthy strangers while her brother sat in a cell, waiting for a justice system that would probably fail him. "It was my grandmother's," she says carefully. "I don't know what it's called. The label wore off years ago." Dominic Andretti stands abruptly. The movement is so sudden that Aria flinches, her body remembering every dangerous man she's ever encountered: her father before he left, her mother's boyfriends, the police officers who put Marco in handcuffs. But he doesn't move toward her. Instead, he pulls out his phone and dials. "Clear the restaurant," he says to whoever answers. His eyes never leave Aria's face. "Everyone out. Now. I don't care what you have to comp. Do it in the next 5 minutes." "Sir," Aria begins, her heart hammering. "I don't understand. You're not in trouble." His voice softens fractionally. "But I need to talk to you, privately. And I need everyone else gone before we have that conversation." Within 3 minutes, the restaurant manager appears, making apologetic announcements about a gas leak, a necessary precaution, complimentary meals for everyone's next visit. Aria watches in disbelief as her section empties, as the entire dining room clears, as staff begins ushering confused, annoyed customers toward the exits. The manager approaches Dominic's table with obvious nervousness. "Mr. Andretti, we've initiated the evacuation protocol. Is there anything else you need?" "Privacy." Dominic's gaze finally breaks from Aria to address the manager. "Take the staff to the back. Close the kitchen. I'll need 30 minutes." The manager nods and disappears. Within 5 minutes, the restaurant is silent. Empty. Just Aria and this stranger, whose presence apparently has the power to shut down an entire establishment with a single phone call. She should leave. Should walk out the door and never come back. Should recognize this situation for what it is: dangerous, unpredictable, involving a man who clearly operates by rules she doesn't understand. But she doesn't leave. Because beneath the fear, beneath the confusion, there's something else. Curiosity. Recognition that this moment, this bizarre collision of her world with his, means something. That the perfume she's wearing, her great-grandmother's perfume, the one luxury she's allowed herself, has triggered something in this man that goes deeper than simple appreciation. "Sit down," Dominic says quietly, gesturing to the chair across from him. "Please." Aria sits. Not because he's ordered it, but because her legs are shaking too much to hold her upright. Dominic leans forward, his eyes searching her face with that same intense focus. "How long have you had that perfume?" 5 years, since my grandmother died. "And before that? Who owned it?" "My great-grandmother. She brought it from Italy in 1952. Aria's voice is steadier now, though her heart still races. "Why does this matter? Why did you evacuate an entire restaurant because of perfume?" He doesn't answer immediately. Instead, he reaches into his jacket and withdraws a leather wallet. From it, he extracts a small photograph, aged and creased, the colors faded but still visible. He sets it on the table between them. Aria looks down and feels the world tilt. The photograph shows a young woman, perhaps 19 or 20, standing beside a fountain in what looks like an Italian plaza. She's wearing a summer dress, her dark hair loose around her shoulders, smiling at whoever holds the camera. The photo is old, judging by the clothing and the quality, probably taken in the 1,950 seconds. The woman in the photograph could be Aria's twin. Same bone structure, same full lips, same wide-set dark eyes. The resemblance isn't approximate. It's uncanny. "Who is this?" Aria whispers. "Her name was Isabella Andretti," Dominic says quietly. "She was my grandmother. This photo was taken in Naples in 1951, a year before she immigrated to America." Aria's hand shakes as she picks up the photograph. "I don't understand. Why do I look like your grandmother?" "Because," Dominic says, his voice carrying the weight of something he's been holding for a very long time, "I think your family. I think your great-grandmother and my grandmother were sisters, and I think that the perfume you're wearing is the key to proving it." The revelation hangs in the air between them. Aria stares at the photograph, at the woman who could be her mirror image, at this impossible connection that's just revealed itself through scent and resemblance. "That's not possible," she says finally. "My great-grandmother's name was Isabella too, but her last name was Moretti, not Andretti. Moretti was her married name." Dominic pulls out his phone, scrolling through something. "My grandmother had a younger sister named Lucia. They were separated during immigration and never reconnected. My grandmother spent 40 years trying to find her." He turns the phone toward Aria. It shows a family tree, professionally researched, with names and dates and locations meticulously documented. Aria's eyes scan the information, finding her great-grandmother's name, Lucia Andretti, later Lucia Moretti, married 1952 to Antonio Moretti in Chicago. "Lucia changed her name," Dominic continues, "married quickly after arriving. My grandmother always suspected something had happened, something that made Lucia want to hide. She never stopped looking, but by the time she had resources to hire real investigators, the trail was 40 years cold." Aria's mind races through family stories, fragments of information her grandmother Rosa had shared before dementia claimed her memories. "Your great-grandmother never talked about Italy, never wanted to discuss the family she left behind. Your grandfather used to say she had nightmares, would wake up crying in Italian, but she wouldn't explain why. What happened to them?" Aria asks. "Why would sisters separate like that and never reconnect?" Dominic's expression darkens. "My grandmother's journals suggest Lucia was hiding from someone, that the separation was deliberate protection, not accidental." He gestures to the perfume still clinging to Aria's skin. "That scent is the proof. My grandmother created that formula, never shared it outside immediate family, which means Lucia kept that connection alive even while hiding everything else." Dominic leans back, studying her. The question is, what was she hiding from? And why did she think changing her name and disappearing would keep her safe? Aria thinks about her family. Her great-grandmother Lucia, who died before Aria was born. Her grandmother Rosa, who spoke very little about the past. Her mother, who'd struggled with addiction and died of an overdose when Aria was 16. Her brother Marco, currently sitting in jail for a crime he didn't commit. "My family doesn't have the kind of history that involves mysteries and secrets," she says. "We're just regular people trying to survive." "That's what I thought too," Dominic says quietly, "until I started really digging into my grandmother's past, into what the Andretti family actually was in Italy before they immigrated." He pauses, seeming to weigh how much to reveal. "My grandmother married into the Andretti name in America, but in Italy, the Andretti family was connected to, in organized systems, power structures that operated outside legal frameworks. When the family immigrated, they brought those connections with them, built them into something bigger here. The implications settle over Aria like cold water. You're saying your family is connected, Dominic finishes. That's the word people use when they don't want to say what it actually means. My grandfather built an empire in Chicago. Restaurants, real estate, import-export businesses. Some of them are legitimate. Many of them are not. When he died, my father took over. When he died, I inherited everything. Aria stands up so fast the chair scrapes against the floor. I need to leave. Wait, no. Her voice is firm, despite the trembling in her hands. I don't know what this is, what you think this connection means, but I can't be involved in whatever your family does. I have enough problems without adding organized crime to the list. Your brother, Dominic says quietly. Aria freezes halfway to the door. She turns slowly. What did you say? Marco Torres. Arrested 8 months ago. Trial in 6 weeks. Dominic's expression is sympathetic, not threatening. I know about the lawyer you can't afford. The 3 jobs. Everything. How do you know that? Aria's voice is barely above a whisper. Because I make it my business to know things. He stands, moves slowly toward her. I'm telling you this so you understand what I can offer. I don't want anything from you. You want your brother free. You want the charges dropped. You want justice for a system that failed both of you. Dominic stops a few feet away, respecting her space. I can make that happen. I have connections in the police department, in the prosecutor's office, in places that matter. I can have those charges dismissed by the end of the week. Aria's heart is pounding so hard she can barely hear her own thoughts. And what would you want in return? Information. Answers. I want to understand what happened to Lucia. Why she disappeared from my grandmother's life. Why she felt she needed to hide. I want to know if there's family out there that I've never met, connections that were severed that could be restored. He pauses. And I want to help you. Because if we're family, even distantly, then your problems are my problems. That's how this works. You don't know me. You don't owe me anything. No, Dominic agrees. But my grandmother spent 40 years looking for her sister. 40 years of guilt and grief, and wondering what happened. If you're Lucia's great-granddaughter, then helping you is the closest I can come to, honoring what she wanted, to make right whatever went wrong all those years ago. Aria stares at him, this stranger who looks at her like she matters, who's offering her the one thing she's been desperate for. Help. Real help. The kind that could actually save Marco instead of just postponing his inevitable conviction. She thinks about the perfume, about how her grandmother insisted it was important, that it connected them to something bigger than their small, struggling life. About how Aria had worn it tonight seeking strength, and instead found this. A man who claims to be family, who has the power to change everything, who might be exactly as dangerous as he seems powerful. I need time to think, she says finally. Of course. Dominic returns to the table, writes something on a business card. My private number. Call me when you're ready to talk. Or don't call, and I'll respect that choice. But Aria... He looks up, holds her gaze. That perfume didn't bring us together by accident. Lucia kept it for a reason. Passed it down for a reason. Maybe this is what she wanted all along. For the families to find each other again. Aria takes the card. Her hand brushes his, and the contact sends electricity up her arm that she chooses to ignore. She walks out of Salvatore's into the Chicago night, which has turned cold and sharp. The card burns in her pocket. Her brother's face fills her mind. And somewhere in her chest, beneath the fear and confusion and overwhelming exhaustion, something else stirs. Hope. Dangerous, complicated, impossible hope. Aria doesn't sleep. She lies in her studio apartment, staring at the water-stained ceiling, listening to her upstairs neighbor's television through walls thin as paper, turning Dominic Andretti's business card over and over in her hands until the edges soften with wear. By 3 a.m., she's given up on sleep entirely. She sits at her laptop, the screens glow harsh in the darkness, and begins searching. Dominic Andretti's digital footprint is surprisingly sparse for someone who allegedly runs a significant operation. A few society page photos from charity events, always in the background, never the focus. A handful of business registrations for restaurants and property management companies. Nothing that screams organized crime, but nothing that disproves it either. She searches for Isabella Andretti next. Finds an obituary from 10 years ago, describing a beloved grandmother, devoted community member, generous philanthropist. The photo shows an elegant older woman with dark eyes and strong features. The resemblance to the young woman in the photograph and to Aria herself is undeniable. Then she searches for Lucia Moretti. Her great-grandmother's name yields almost nothing. A marriage certificate from 1952, a death certificate from 1994. No photos, no social media presence from descendants, no trace of a woman who apparently wanted to stay invisible. Aria closes her laptop and picks up the photograph of her brother that sits on her nightstand. Marco grinning, 17 years old, holding his acceptance letter to community college. That was 2 years ago, before everything fell apart, before their mother's overdose, before the arrest, before Aria's life became this endless treadmill of work and worry, and watching her brother's hope die a little more with each failed legal motion. The lawyer, the expensive one she can barely afford, had been blunt last week. The evidence is circumstantial, but the arresting officer's testimony is consistent. Without something to discredit them or prove the drugs were planted, we're looking at a conviction. Maybe we can negotiate down to 18 months if we plead out. 18 months of her brother's life. 18 months in a system that would break him. That would turn him from a kid who wanted to study engineering into just another statistic. 18 months that could become years if Marco picked up any violations inside, any fights, any infractions, in a place designed to create them. Dominic Andretti said he could make it disappear. End of the week, he'd said. As if justice were something you could purchase with a phone call. Maybe for men like him, it was. Aria watches dawn break over Chicago's skyline. Pink and gold light creeping across buildings that house people whose problems are nothing like hers. She showers, dresses for her morning shift at the coffee shop, and slips Dominic's card into her pocket. She'll call him, not today, but soon. Because sometimes survival means accepting help from dangerous places. Sometimes you make deals with people you don't fully trust because the alternative is watching someone you love disappear into a system designed to consume them. Her great-grandmother Lucia had understood that, had made whatever choice she'd made 70 years ago to protect herself or her family, had changed her name, hidden her past, passed down a perfume that would someday lead her great-granddaughter to the family she'd run from. Maybe Lucia had been preparing for this moment all along. Maybe that's what the perfume was, not just a luxury, not just a connection to the past, but a key, a way back to power and protection when it was finally needed. 3 days pass. Aria works her shifts, visits Marco during county jail visiting hours on Wednesday afternoon. He looks thinner, more tired, the optimism that used to animate his face replaced by something harder and more resigned. Lawyer says we should take the plea deal. Marco says through the scratched plexiglass that separates them. His voice comes through the phone tinny and distant. Say fighting it is just going to make the sentence longer when I lose. We're not taking the deal, Aria says firmly. Something's going to break in our favor. I can feel it. That's not how the world works, Ari. Marco's smile is sad. Not for people like us. Just trust me. A few more days. Something's coming. She doesn't tell him about Dominic. Don't tell him about the perfume or the photograph or the impossible offer. Because if it falls through, if it's a lie or a game or something she doesn't understand, she doesn't want him carrying that disappointment on top of everything else. Thursday evening, she calls the number on the card. Dominic answers on the second ring. I was beginning to think you wouldn't call. I need to know what you want from me. Specifically, not vague promises about information and family connections. What do you actually need in exchange for helping Marco? There's a pause. Then, where are you right now? My apartment. Why? Send me the address. I'm coming to you. This conversation needs to happen in person. That's not Aria. His voice is gentle but firm. If we're going to do this, we do it right. You need to see my face when I make promises. You need to be able to judge whether I'm lying, and I need to see yours when you decide to trust me. Send the address. Against her better judgment, she does. He arrives 40 minutes later in a black SUV that looks out of place on her street, where most vehicles are held together with duct tape and prayer. She watches from her window as he emerges, flanked by 2 men who scan the area with professional paranoia before nodding to him. Bodyguards. Of course he has bodyguards. She buzzes him up. The apartment suddenly feels impossibly small as he fills the doorway. Too large, too expensive, too everything for this space that barely contains her life. This is where you live, he says, and it's not a question. His eyes take in the studio apartment, the futon that serves as both couch and bed, the kitchenette barely big enough for one person, the stacks of bills on the desk, the photograph of Marco prominently displayed. Not everyone owns restaurants and has bodyguards, Aria says, more defensively than she intends. I wasn't judging. I was understanding. He turns to face her. Understanding why you'd consider my offer even though everything about it scares you. Because this, he gestures around, is what you're trying to escape. Not for yourself. For him. He's pointing at Marco's photograph. What do you want from me? Aria asks again. Dominic sits on her futon without invitation, making himself comfortable in her space. My grandmother's journals mention that Lucia was hiding from someone specific. A man named Vittorio Salvino. He was connected to organized families in Naples, engaged in trafficking operations, money laundering, things that put people in prison or graves. Lucia had witnessed something, knew something that made her dangerous to him. He pulls out his phone, shows her scanned pages of handwriting in Italian with English translations beneath. Isabella wrote that Lucia came to America to escape Salvino, but that he had connections here too. That's why she changed her name, why she disappeared. She was terrified he'd find her if she maintained contact with Isabella. And you think this? Vittorio Salvino is still a threat? 70 years later? Aria sits in her desk chair, the only other seating option. Salvino himself is long dead, but his organization isn't. It evolved, changed hands, became something bigger. And recently, Dominic's expression darkens. I've been having problems with an organization that traces its lineage back to Salvino's original operation. Territory disputes, business conflicts. They've been making moves against my interests, trying to force me out of neighborhoods I've controlled for a decade. You think this is connected to whatever happened with Lucia? I think it's possible that whatever Lucia witnessed, whatever secret she carried, might be relevant to the current power structure. Old grudges run deep in this world. Family vendettas can span generations. He leans forward. What I want from you is this. Help me understand what Lucia knew. Let me access any family documents, letters, anything she might have left behind. If there's information buried in your family history that could give me leverage against the Salvino organization, I need it. And in exchange, you help Marco. I help Marco immediately. Tonight, if you agree. I make one phone call, and the charges start falling apart. The arresting officers suddenly remember details differently. Evidence gets compromised. Witnesses become unreliable. By next week, the prosecutor's office will be begging to drop the case rather than take it to trial and lose. It sounds too easy, too clean. Too much like the corruption that put Marco in jail is the same corruption that could free him, just pointed in a different direction. How do I know you'll actually do it? Aria asks. How do I know this isn't just a story to manipulate me into helping you? Dominic pulls out his phone again. Make a call. It's me. I need you to pull the file on Marco Torres. Cook County case, possession charges. Yes, I'll wait. He puts the phone on speaker. A voice emerges, professional and cautious. I've got the file. What do you need? Start the process. Evidence review, officer testimony verification, chain of custody audit. I want every aspect of this case examined for irregularities, priority level. That's going to raise questions. Questions I'm authorized to raise. Do it. Dominic ends the call and looks at Aria. That was my contact in the state's attorney's office. The review starts tonight. If you agree to help me, Marco walks free within days. If you don't, he shrugs. The review gets quietly shelved and nothing changes. Aria's hands are shaking. You're using my brother as leverage. I'm showing you that I have the power to deliver what I promise. There's a difference. His voice softens. Aria, I understand why you don't trust me, but I'm not your enemy. I'm offering you a way out of an impossible situation. All I'm asking in return is information that might help both of us understand what happened to our families. She stands, moves to, and the window, stares out at the street where she's lived for 3 years. At the bodega on the corner where she buys groceries one meal at a time because she can't afford to shop in bulk. At the bus stop where she waits in the cold every morning. At the life she's built from nothing, that never seems to grow into anything more than survival. What happens after? She asks, not turning around. After you have the information you need, and Marco is free, do we just go back to our separate lives? Do you forget we exist? That depends on what we find, and on whether you want to know more about where you came from. His reflection appears in the window as he stands behind her, not too close, respecting her space. Isabella spent 40 years looking for Lucia. I've spent 10 years trying to understand why they were separated. If your family and everything suggests you are, then this story doesn't end with a transaction. It ends with understanding, maybe even with belonging. The word hits her harder than she expects. Belonging. She hasn't belonged anywhere since her mother died, has been adrift in a city that doesn't care whether she lives or disappears, working jobs that don't remember her name, living in an apartment that's just a place to sleep, existing in the gaps between other people's lives. I don't have much, she says quietly. My grandmother Rosa died 5 years ago, and most of her things got donated or thrown away. I kept some photos, a few letters, the perfume bottle. That's it. That might be enough. Can I see them? Aria retrieves a shoebox from her closet. Inside, a stack of photographs showing her family across generations. Some letters in Italian she's never been able to fully translate. and the crystal perfume bottle, nearly empty now, that started this entire collision. Dominic examines each item with careful attention, pauses on a photograph of a young Lucia, probably taken in the 1,960 seconds, showing her standing in front of a small house with a man Aria assumes was her husband Antonio. "She looks like Isabella," he says quietly. "Same eyes, same way of standing, like she's ready to run at any moment." He picks up one of the letters, scans the Italian. This is from 1953. Lucia is writing to someone named Maria, describing her new life in Chicago. Says she feels safe here, that she's finally free from the shadow that followed her in Italy. He looks up. "Does the name Maria mean anything to you?" "My grandmother mentioned a great-aunt Maria once. I think she was Lucia's cousin, maybe, but I never met her." Dominic photographs the letter with his phone. "I'll have this translated properly. There might be details in here that explain what she was running from." He continues through the box, documenting everything. When he reaches the perfume bottle, he holds it with unexpected reverence. "May I?" Aria nods. He opens it, inhales the faint scent that still clings to the crystal, closes his eyes. "That's it. That's Isabella's formula. I'd recognize it anywhere." "Why is this perfume so important?" Aria asks. "It's just a scent. Why would it matter enough to pass down through generations?" "Because in our world, symbols matter." Dominic replaces the cap carefully. This scent was Isabella's signature, a signal of protection. If someone wore it, they were untouchable. But Lucia took it with her. Exactly. She kept that protection for her descendants. And maybe it's no accident you wore it the night you walked into my restaurant. The implications make Aria's head spin. Her great-grandmother, whom she'd always understood as a simple immigrant woman who cleaned houses and raised children, had been carrying secrets and protection and power all along. Had passed it down wrapped in crystal, disguised as luxury, waiting for the moment when her family would need it. "I'll help you," Aria says. "I'll give you whatever information I have. I'll try to find more if I can, but I have conditions." "Name them." "Marco goes free, completely free. Not just charges dropped, but his record expunged. I don't want this to follow him for the rest of his life. Done. And I want protection. If your enemies are connected to whatever Lucia was running from, and you start asking questions about it, they might come after me. I won't help you if it means putting myself or Marco in more danger." Dominic's expression turns serious. "You'll have protection. Starting tonight. My people will watch your apartment, follow you to work, make sure nothing happens to you or your brother. Anyone who wants to get to you will have to go through them first. And trust me," his voice hardens, "no one gets through them. Why would you do all this? Protection, freeing Marco, everything. What's really in this for you?" He's quiet for a moment. 10 years ago, my grandmother made me promise to find Lucia's family. I searched with no results. Then you walked into my restaurant wearing Isabella's perfume. He moves closer. But it's more than that now. You reminded me what it feels like to care about something beyond power. To protect someone because it's right, not because it's useful. "That's a pretty speech," Aria says, though her voice lacks conviction. "But I'm not naive enough to believe you're just being noble." "I'm not just being noble. I need the information you have. I need leverage against the Salvino organization before they make a move that costs me everything I've built. But those things can be true simultaneously. I can need something from you and still genuinely want to help you. People are allowed to be complicated." Aria thinks about her brother, about the plea deal that would steal 18 months of his life, about the lawyer who stopped returning her calls with any real hope, about the system that chews up people like them and spits them out broken. "Okay," she says, "we have a deal." Dominic extends his hand. "Partners then, at least until we figure out what happened to Lucia, and why it matters now." Aria shakes his hand. His grip is firm, warm, and the contact sends that same electricity through her that she felt at the restaurant. His eyes hold hers for a moment longer than necessary, and she sees something there beyond calculation. Something that might be genuine care, or might be an excellent performance. She can't tell which yet. "I'll make the call about Marco tonight," Dominic says, releasing her hand. "You'll see movement within 24 hours. In the meantime, I'm arranging protection. My people will introduce themselves tomorrow. Don't be alarmed by their presence. They're there to keep you safe, not to control you." "What about the information? The search for what Lucia knew?" "I'll have my researchers go through the letters and photographs you've provided. but I also need you to think about anything your grandmother said. Any stories, any warnings, any strange comments about Italy or the past. Sometimes the most important information is hidden in casual conversation. After he leaves, Aria stands in her apartment that suddenly feels different. Smaller, yes, but also safer somehow. Like invisible walls have gone up around her, protection she can't see but can feel. She picks up the perfume bottle, holds it to the light. The crystal catches the glow from her single lamp, refracting it into small rainbows across her wall. Her great-grandmother's perfume, her great-grandmother's protection, her great-grandmother's secret, finally revealing itself 70 years later. Outside, she notices the black SUV parked across the street. Dominic's protection, already in place. She should be afraid, should be terrified of what she's just agreed to, of the dangerous man she's just made a deal with. Instead, for the first time in 8 months, she feels something else. Not hope, exactly. Something more solid, something like power, like she's finally stopped being a victim of circumstances and started being someone who makes choices. That matter. She texts her brother through the county jail messaging system. Something good is coming, I promise. Hold on just a little longer. Then she lies down on her futon, still wearing the perfume that brought Dominic Andretti into her life, and sleeps better than she has in months. If you're hooked on this story, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. Your support means everything and helps me bring you more emotional stories like this one. The transformation happens faster than Aria expected. Friday morning, less than 12 hours after Dominic left her apartment, she wakes to a text from Marco's lawyer. I need to speak with you immediately. Developments in the case. Call me. She dials with shaking hands, still in bed, morning light barely creeping through her window. Aria. The lawyer's voice is confused, almost disbelieving. I don't know what happened, but the state's attorney's office just contacted me. They're conducting an emergency review of Marco's case. Apparently, there are concerns about evidence handling and officer testimony. This doesn't happen. Not like this. Not this fast. What does it mean? She sits up, heart pounding. It means they're looking for a way out. When they review this aggressively, it's because someone with power wants the case to disappear. I'd estimate 72 hours before they approach us about dismissal. Maybe less. After the call ends, Aria sits in stunned silence. Dominic wasn't lying. He has the power, he claimed. One phone call and the system that was crushing her brother is suddenly reversing itself, bending to accommodate Dominic's will. It should disgust her. This is corruption. The same kind of manipulation that put Marco in jail now being used to free him. Justice isn't being served, strings are being pulled, power is being exercised, and the truth doesn't matter as much as who you know and what they can do for you. But Marco will be free. That's all that matters. He'll walk out of Cook County Jail, resume his life, get back to school. The nightmare will end not because the system worked, but because Aria found someone powerful enough to make it work. She gets ready for her morning shift, moving through her routine on autopilot. When she steps outside, she immediately notices them. 2 men, mid-30s, wearing casual clothing but carrying themselves with unmistakable awareness. They're sitting in a sedan across the street, and when she emerges, one of them nods. Protection. Dominic's people. She takes the bus to the coffee shop, and the sedan follows at a discreet distance. When she arrives, one of the men positions himself at a table near the window, with clear sightlines to the counter where she works. He orders coffee, pulls out a newspaper, and settles in like he's been coming to this cafe his entire life. Her manager, Paul, notices. Friend of yours? Something like that. Paul studies the man with the practiced eye of someone who's worked in the service industry long enough to recognize danger. He's armed. I can see the bulge under his jacket. He's protected. I'm dealing with a situation. He's not a threat to anyone here. Aria, what have you gotten yourself into? Nothing I can explain right now, but I promise you and everyone else here is safe. He's just watching me. Paul doesn't look convinced, but he lets it drop. Throughout her shift, Aria is hyper-aware of her new shadow. He's professional, doesn't approach her, doesn't interfere with her work, but his presence is a constant reminder that her life has shifted into territory she doesn't fully understand. When her shift ends, he follows her to the dry cleaner where Mrs. Chen greets her with concerned Chinese that Aria has learned to interpret through gesture and tone. Mrs. Chen also notices the car, the watching man, and fires off questions that Aria deflects with half-truths. By the time she reaches Salvatore's for her evening shift, Aria has two shadows, the original man from the morning and a second who took over during her dry cleaning shift. They rotate, she realizes. Professional security operating in shifts to maintain constant coverage. Marco, her manager at Salvatore's, pulls her aside immediately. Mr. Andretti's assistant called. He's requested a private dining room tonight at 9, and he specifically requested that you serve him. Aria's stomach tightens. Did he say why? Do people like him explain their reasons? Just be professional. And Aria? Marco's expression is serious. Whatever's happening between you and Dominic Andretti, be careful. I've worked in this neighborhood for 15 years. I know what his family is. I know what he is. Those aren't people you walk away from once you're involved. At 9 p.m., Aria is directed to the private dining room on Salvatore's second floor. It's intimate, designed for 6 people maximum, with windows overlooking the street and enough privacy for conversations that shouldn't be overheard. Dominic is already there, along with a woman Aria doesn't recognize. She's perhaps 50, with silver-threaded dark hair and an elegant bearing that suggests she's comfortable in places of power. Aria. Dominic stands. Thank you for meeting with us. This is Sofia Battaglia. She was my grandmother, Isabella's closest friend. Sofia extends her hand, her grip firm and assessing. Dominic has told me about you. About the perfume, the photographs, your resemblance to Isabella. I needed to see for myself. See what? Aria asks. Whether you're really Lucia's great-granddaughter. Whether this connection Dominic believes in is real or wishful thinking. Sofia gestures to the chair across from her. Sit. Let me look at you properly. Aria sits, feeling examined like a specimen under glass. Sofia studies her face with intense focus, silent for long enough that the scrutiny becomes uncomfortable. Finally, Sofia speaks. You have Lucia's eyes. I met her once, you know. In 1952, shortly after she arrived in America, Isabella had finally tracked her down, and we went to see her in Chicago. Lucia was terrified, begged Isabella not to contact her again, and said it wasn't safe. But I remember her eyes, dark, expressive, always watching like she expected danger from every direction. You have those same eyes. What happened at that meeting? Aria asks. Why did Lucia send Isabella away? Sofia exchanges a glance with Dominic. Lucia told Isabella that Salvino had people in Chicago. That contact would mean death for both of them. The only way to stay alive was complete separation. But she kept the perfume, Aria says. Yes, that one connection Isabella never stopped grieving over. HT to stay away, whether Lucia ever forgave her for not fighting harder to maintain the relationship. Dominic leans forward. Sofia has been helping me research the Salvino organization. We've traced its evolution from Naples to Chicago to its current operations. What we've found is concerning. Sofia pulls out a tablet, brings up a complex diagram showing organizational connections. The Salvino family's descendants currently operate under the name of their legitimate business front, Cerberus Holdings. They control shipping, real estate, and several financial services companies. On the surface, everything looks legal. Underneath, she taps the screen. They're involved in money laundering, political corruption, and increasingly, they're making moves to take over territory that belongs to other families, including the Andretti interests. Specifically, Dominic adds, they've been targeting restaurants and properties in neighborhoods I control, offering owners deals they can't refuse, using intimidation and violence when persuasion doesn't work. 3 of my establishments have had mysterious fires in the past 6 months. 2 of my business partners have received threats serious enough to make them sell out to Cerberus at a fraction of fair value. You think this is about more than just territory, Aria says slowly. You think it's connected to whatever Lucia witnessed. I think the Salvino family has never forgotten what she saw, and I think they've spent 70 years making sure no one could ever prove it or use it against them. Dominic's expression is grim. But now you've appeared, wearing Isabella's perfume, connected to Lucia's bloodline. If they find out you exist, they're going to wonder what you know, whether Lucia passed down information along with that perfume bottle. But I don't know anything. Aria protests. Lucia died before I was born. Whatever secrets she had died with her. They won't believe that. Sofia's voice is gentle but firm. In our world, family secrets are assumed to be passed down. They'll think Lucia told your grandmother Rosa, that Rosa told your mother, that somehow the information survived. They'll come after you just to be sure. The reality of what Aria has stepped into settles over her like cold water. She's not just a connection to historical mystery. She's a perceived threat to an organization that survived by eliminating threats. This is why you need protection, Dominic says. Why I'm not just offering it as a courtesy but insisting on it as a necessity. The moment the Salvino family learns you exist, and they will learn eventually, you become a target. Then why tell me? Then, Aria's voice rises. Why not just let me live in ignorance? I was fine before you evacuated that restaurant, before you told me about Isabella and Lucia and all of this. I was surviving. Barely. Dominic's tone is blunt. Working 3 jobs, living in an apartment that's falling apart, watching your brother get convicted of a crime he didn't commit. That's not fine. That's drowning slowly. I'm offering you a way to actually live, instead of just surviving. But yes, it comes with risks. Everything worth having does. Aria looks between them. Dominic, who's watching her with intensity that makes her skin feel warm. Sophia, who's examining her with the clinical assessment of someone determining if she's worth the investment. 2 people from a world she doesn't understand, offering protection and danger in equal measure. What do you need from me? She asks. Specifically, what am I supposed to do with the information about Lucia? Remember, Sophia says simply, think about everything your grandmother told you. Any stories, any warnings, any strange comments. Lucia was terrified, yes, but she also survived. She built a life, raised a family, passed down that perfume with intention. Somewhere in the stories she told, in the things she chose to preserve, there might be information that explains what she witnessed, what the Salvino family is so desperate to keep hidden. And if I remember something, if I figure out what Lucia knew, then we use it, Dominic says. We turn you from a potential threat in their eyes into an actual weapon. We leverage whatever information Lucia carried to protect you permanently. Make you too dangerous to touch because exposing you would mean exposing them. It's the same strategy he'd used with Marco, not eliminating the threat, but making it too costly to act against, turning vulnerability into a deterrent. I need to think, Aria says. This is too much to process right now. Take the time you need, Dominic stands, but do it somewhere safe. Sophia has arranged an apartment for you. Better neighborhood, better security, rent-free for as long as you need it. Consider it part of the protection package. I'm not moving. I don't want charity. It's not charity. It's strategy. Sophia's voice brooks no argument. Your current apartment has fire escape access, windows that don't lock properly, neighbors who don't ask questions. It's indefensible. If the Salvino organization decides you're a problem, you won't survive 3 days there. The new place has controlled access, security cameras, and reinforced doors. It gives my people a fighting chance to keep you alive. The casualness with which Sophia discusses her potential death is somehow more frightening than overt threats. These people operate in a world where violence is a planning consideration, where survival requires calculated security measures, where apartments are chosen based on defensibility rather than affordability. Fine, Aria says, though nothing about this feels fine. I'll move. I'll think about what my grandmother told me. I'll let you protect me. But I want updates on Marco's case, daily. I want to know exactly what's happening and when he's going to be released. You'll have them, Dominic promises. And Aria, thank you for trusting me with this. I know it's not easy. After they leave, Aria sits alone in the private dining room, surrounded by expensive furniture and the lingering scent of Dominic's cologne. She thinks about her great-grandmother Lucia, who sat across from Isabella 70 years ago and made an impossible choice. To protect her family, she'd cut off the only blood relative she had in America. She'd lived in fear and secrecy, passing down nothing but a perfume bottle and fragments of stories. Now Aria is being asked to undo that separation. To walk back into the danger Lucia spent her life avoiding. To trust that Dominic Andretti, whose family is built on violence and power, will actually protect her instead of using her. Her phone buzzes. A text from an unknown number. New apartment address attached. Moving crew available tomorrow morning if you want assistance. Sophia Aria looks at the address. It's in Lincoln Park, one of Chicago's most expensive neighborhoods. The kind of place she'd never imagined living, where monthly rent probably equals what she makes in 3 months of work. She's being pulled into a different world, one with protection and power, but also with enemies who operate by rules she doesn't understand. One where her great-grandmother's secrets, might be the only thing keeping her alive. She responds, "Tomorrow morning works, thank you." Then she goes downstairs to finish her shift, surrounded by wealthy customers who have no idea that the woman filling their water glasses just made a deal that might cost her everything or save her from the slow death of poverty. Tomorrow, her life changes again. Tomorrow, she moves into a cage that looks like luxury. Tomorrow, she stops being Aria Torres, waitress and survivor, and becomes something else, something more dangerous, something protected by a man whose eyes promise both salvation and destruction in equal measure. The apartment in Lincoln Park makes Aria feel like she's living in someone else's life. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlook the park, where people jog with expensive strollers and dogs that probably have their own trust funds. The kitchen has marble countertops she's afraid to touch. The bedroom is larger than her entire previous apartment. Everything is clean, pristine, carefully designed by someone who understands luxury as a baseline rather than an aspiration. Sophia's moving crew had transferred Aria's belongings, which fit into 4 boxes and 2 garbage bags in under an hour. They'd looked almost embarrassed by how little she owned, these men accustomed to moving entire households who could barely fill a corner of her new living room. Dominic arrives that evening with takeout from a restaurant Aria recognizes as prohibitively expensive. He doesn't knock, just uses a key she didn't know he had, and finds her standing in the middle of the living room like a museum visitor, afraid to touch the exhibits. "You'll get used to it," he says, setting bags of food on the dining table that seats 8. "Sophia said you looked shell-shocked when you arrived." "I don't belong here." Aria gestures at the apartment. "This place costs more per month than I make in 6 months. Maybe a year. You're not paying rent. Consider it part of the protection. Arrangement." He starts unpacking containers of pasta, grilled fish, and roasted vegetables. "And you do belong here. You're family to someone who mattered to me. That gives you a claim to resources I can provide. A family you didn't know existed until 5 days ago. Time doesn't determine significance." He pulls out a chair for her. "Sit. Eat. You look like you haven't had a proper meal in weeks." He's not wrong. Aria's diet has consisted primarily of coffee shop pastries, employee meals at Salvatore's, and whatever Mrs. Chen at the dry cleaner insists on sending home with her. She sits, and Dominic serves her portions of everything with the casual efficiency of someone accustomed to taking care of people. "Marco's lawyer called this afternoon," Dominic says, taking the seat across from her. "The state's attorney officially dropped all charges. Marco will be released tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. His record will be expunged within 30 days. The words hit Aria like a physical impact. She sets down her fork, hands trembling. "Tomorrow? He's really coming home?" "He's really coming home." Dominic's expression softens. "I've arranged for transportation from Cook County. My people will bring him here first, let you have time together, then take him wherever he wants to go. His apartment, friends, wherever feels safe to him." Aria presses her palms against her eyes, trying to hold back tears that come anyway. 8 months of fighting, of watching her brother's hope die incrementally, of working herself to exhaustion trying to save him, and it's over. Just like that. One powerful man making phone calls, and the nightmare ends. "Thank you," she whispers. "I don't know how to thank you properly for this. You already are. By trusting me with your family's history, by letting me protect you, by not running when every instinct probably tells you to." He waits until she looks up. "Aria, I need you to understand something. What I did for Marco wasn't just strategy or obligation. I did it because seeing you fight that hard for someone you love reminded me why power matters. Not for accumulation or control, but for being able to help people who deserve better than what the system gives them. That's a very convenient philosophy for someone who benefits from the system being corrupt." "Yes," he agrees simply. "I won't pretend I'm not complicit. My entire empire is built on the system being broken, but that doesn't mean I can't use that power for something good occasionally. Consider Marco my penance." They eat in silence for a while. The food is extraordinary, probably the best meal Aria's had in years, but she can barely taste it through the overwhelming emotions crashing through her. "Sophia found something," Dominic says eventually. "In the letters you gave me, one of them, written in 1954, mentions a ledger. Lucia wrote to her cousin Maria that she'd hidden the book that could destroy them in a place where only blood could find it." Aria sets down her fork. "What kind of ledger?" "We think it's financial records. Documentation of the Salvino organization's operations in Italy. Names, transactions, payoffs, evidence that could have sent dozens of people to prison." He pulls out his phone, shows her the translated letter. This is what Lucia witnessed. She didn't just see something happen. She took proof of what she saw, and she hid it somewhere before disappearing. And you think it still exists? After 70 years? I think Lucia was smart and careful. I think when she wrote "only blood could find it," she meant family, her descendants. She created a trail that would only make sense to someone who understood her history, who had the perfume, who could piece together clues she left. That's a lot of faith in someone's ability to solve a 70-year-old mystery. Your great-grandmother survived by being strategic. She didn't just run, she armed herself with insurance. That ledger was her protection. If the Salvino family found her, she could threaten to expose them. As long as they believed she had it, they couldn't risk killing her. Dominic leans forward, but she also knew she might die before she could use it, so she left clues, breadcrumbs for family to follow if they ever needed that same protection. Aria thinks about the shoebox of family artifacts, the photographs, the letters, the perfume. What had seemed like random keepsakes suddenly feel more deliberate. How am I supposed to find clues in things I've looked at my entire life? By looking differently, by understanding that Lucia was leaving you a message. He stands, moves to the window. Sophia and I will help. We'll go through everything together. But Aria, you need to understand what finding that ledger would mean. It's not just historical curiosity. It's a weapon that could destroy the Salvino organization, and they'll kill to keep it hidden. They'll kill me whether I find it or not, if they think I might know where it is. Exactly. Which is why finding it is your best protection. Once you have it, once they know you have it, killing you becomes counterproductive. You become more valuable alive than dead because your death would trigger the ledger's release. It's the same strategy he'd used with Marco, but scaled up. Turn the threat into deterrent. Make herself too dangerous to eliminate. When do we start looking? Aria asks. Tomorrow, after Marco is settled. Tonight, you rest. Adjust to being somewhere safe for the first time in months. He moves toward the door. I'm 3 floors up. Penthouse. If you need anything, call. Otherwise, I'll see you tomorrow morning. After he leaves, Aria explores the apartment properly. The bathroom has a tub large enough to swim in. The closet in the bedroom is bigger than her old apartment's kitchen. The view from every window shows a version of Chicago she's only ever seen from the outside. Prosperous, clean, protected. She takes a bath, using expensive soap she finds under the sink, and tries to reconcile this moment with her life 48 hours ago. Working 3 jobs, living paycheck to paycheck, watching her brother disappear into a system designed to consume him. Now she's in a luxury apartment, about to get Marco back, protected by people who kill for a living, searching for a ledger that could either save her or ensure her death. Her phone buzzes. A text from Vanessa. Haven't heard from you in days. You okay? Aria stares at the message. How does she explain any of this? She types, a lot has happened. Marco's being released tomorrow. I'll explain everything soon. Promise I'm safe. Vanessa responds immediately. What? How? Call me. Now. But Aria doesn't call. Because explaining means lying or revealing truths that would put Vanessa in danger. Instead, she texts, tomorrow, after Marco's home, I'll tell you everything I can. She lies in the enormous bed that night, staring at the ceiling where shadows play in patterns nothing, like her old apartment. Somewhere in this city, Marco is probably lying awake too, not knowing yet that tomorrow he walks free. Somewhere, the Salvino organization operates, oblivious that Lucia's great-granddaughter is preparing to undo secrets they've protected for 70 years. And 3 floors up, Dominic Andretti, the man who's offered her protection and power in something that might be genuine care, is probably working late into the night, managing an empire built on violence while trying to solve a mystery that connects their families across generations. Aria touches her throat where she'd applied the perfume earlier. The scent has faded, but its significance remains. This is what Lucia wanted, she realizes. Not for her descendants to live in poverty and fear, but to find their way back to power when they needed it. The perfume was a key. The ledger was insurance. And Aria is the inheritor of both. She falls asleep, thinking about clues and blood, and ledgers hidden in places and only family could find. Marco walks out of Cook County Jail at 10:04 a.m. looking thinner, older, and more fragile than Aria has ever seen him. She's waiting in the black SUV Dominic sent, and the moment Marco sees her through the window, he breaks into a run. She meets him halfway across the parking lot, and they collide in an embrace that nearly knocks them both over. He's shaking, or she's shaking, or they both are. It doesn't matter. How? Marco asks when he can finally speak. The lawyer said it was impossible. He said we'd be lucky to get 18 months. How am I walking out with no record, no probation, nothing? I got help, Aria says. I'll explain everything. But right now, let's just get you somewhere safe. Anthony, one of Dominic's security team who Aria has come to recognize, drives them to Lincoln Park. Marco stares out the window during the ride, occasionally touching his face like he's confirming he's real. This is real. Freedom is real. Whose apartment is this? Marco asks when they arrive at Aria's new building. It's complicated. Mine, temporarily, part of the help I mentioned. The apartment stuns Marco into silence. He walks through each room like he's in a museum, touching surfaces tentatively, looking at his sister with increasing confusion and concern. Ari? What the hell is going on? This place costs, I don't even know what this costs. How can you afford this? I can't. It's being provided. She sits on the couch, gestures for him to join her. I need to tell you some things that are going to sound insane, but I need you to trust me that I'm safe, that you're safe, and that everything I did was to protect you. She tells him about the perfume, the restaurant, and meeting Dominic. She doesn't tell him everything, leaves out the organized crime details, the Salvino family, the ledger that might get them both killed. Just enough for him to understand that she's connected to someone powerful, that this person helped secure his release, and that there are conditions attached. Marco listens with increasing alarm. Aria, you made a deal with a mob boss to get me out? Do you understand how dangerous that is? He's not, she starts, then stops. Because Dominic is exactly that, even if she's been avoiding the label. Yes, I understand. But I also understand that you were going to be convicted, that you were going to lose years of your life for something you didn't do. I had a choice. Let the system crush you or accept help from someone who could actually change the outcome. I chose you. At what cost? Marco's voice rises. What does this guy want from you? Information about our family, about our great-grandmother. He thinks she was related to his grandmother, that there's a connection that matters. He's helping me understand our history. And you believe that? You believe this is just about family history and not about using you for something? I believe he has his own reasons for helping. I believe those reasons serve him as much as they serve me. But I also believe he's kept his promises. You're free. I'm protected. Whatever else happens, he delivered on what he said he would. Marco runs his hands through his hair, a gesture of frustration Aria recognizes from childhood. I don't like this. I don't like you being involved with dangerous people. I don't like that you felt you had to do this for me. What would you have done if our positions were reversed? Aria asks quietly. If I was in jail and you had a way to free me, would you have hesitated? Marco meets her eyes. Doesn't answer, because they both know the truth. He would have done exactly what she did. Worse, probably. I'm going back to school, he says finally. Getting my life back on track. And you're going to extract yourself from whatever this is as soon as possible. Deal? Deal. Aria lies, because she can't tell him that extraction might not be possible, that she's already too deep, already searching for a ledger that could either save her or condemn her. Dominic arrives an hour later with Sophia. Marco's entire body language shifts, posture straightening, jaw tightening, the instinctive response to recognizing a predator. Marco Torres. Dominic extends his hand. I'm glad to see you out. Marco doesn't shake it. You're the one who got me released. I facilitated it, yes. Why? What do you want from my sister? Information about her family history. Nothing more, nothing less. Dominic's expression is neutral, but Aria sees respect in how he doesn't push the handshake. I understand your suspicion. In your position, I'd feel the same. But I give you my word that Aria is under my protection, not my control. She can leave anytime she chooses. Can she? Marco looks at Aria. Can you really just walk away from this? Before Aria can answer, Sophia intervenes. Your sister is helping us solve a 70-year-old mystery that affects both your families. Once we have answers, once we locate what we're looking for, the arrangement concludes. She returns to her life with resources to build whatever future she wants. No strings, no obligations. And if you don't find what you're looking for? Marco challenges. Then the arrangement still concludes, just without the resolution we hope for. Sophia's voice is matter of fact. We're not in the business of holding people indefinitely. That's inefficient and counterproductive. The clinical way Sophia discusses, it seems to reassure Marco more than any emotional promises would. He finally nods, still wary but accepting the situation for what it is. I want to stay here with Aria, Marco says. If she's in danger, I should be here to help protect her. You'll be more helpful somewhere else, Dominic says. Somewhere the Salvino organization doesn't know to look. Your presence here would make Aria a more obvious target. If they find out she has a brother, they'll use you as leverage. The best protection you can offer her is distance. Marco looks at Aria, who nods reluctantly. He's right. I need to know you're safe somewhere they can't find you. That you're building your life back, not getting pulled into this. After more argument and reassurance, Marco finally agrees to stay with friends in Evanston, a suburb far enough removed from the situation to provide some safety. Anthony drives him there personally, with instructions to check in daily and report any suspicious activity. Once Marco is gone, the apartment feels emptier and more dangerous. Aria, Dominic, and Sophia spread the contents of her family box across the dining table. Photographs, letters, the perfume bottle, a few pieces of cheap jewelry that had belonged to Lucia. Only blood could find it. Sophia reads from the translated letter again. What places would be significant to blood relatives but meaningless to others? Family homes? Aria suggests. But Lucia's house was sold decades ago after she died, and I don't even know where it was located. We can find property records. Dominic is already pulling up databases on his laptop. What was Lucia's married name again? Moretti. She married Antonio Moretti in 1952. Dominic types, scrolls, types more. Antonio and Lucia Moretti owned a house on South Loomis Street from 1953 to 1987. After Antonio died in 1987, Lucia continued living there until her death in 1994. The property was sold in 1995 to a developer who converted it into a duplex. Can we access it? Aria asks. We can try. But if the ledger was hidden in that house, 70 years of occupancy and renovation probably destroyed it. Sophia picks up one of the photographs, showing young Lucia standing in front of what appears to be a church. What about sacred spaces? Churches, cemeteries, places that would be maintained across generations? Aria examines the photograph more closely. The church in the background has distinctive architecture, stone facade, arched doorway, a statue of the Virgin Mary visible to one side. My grandmother Rosa used to take me to a church when I was little. She said it was the same church where Lucia and Antonio got married. Street Anthony's, I think? On the south side? Street. Anthony's on South Aberdeen. Dominic's already pulling up information. Built in 1927, still operating. That would make sense. Churches are permanent, stable, the kind of place where something hidden would stay hidden. But where in a church would you hide something? Aria asks. And how would only blood be able to find it? Sophia taps the photograph. Look at where Lucia is standing. She's not centered on the church. She's standing slightly to the left, and her hand is positioned oddly pointing toward something out of frame. They examine the photo under better light. Sophia's right. Lucia's hand is raised, index finger extended, pointing toward something the photographer didn't capture. Is there anything written on the back? Dominic asks. Aria flips it over. Faded handwriting in Italian. Dove. Dorm la prima. Where the first one sleeps. Sophia translates. La prima the first. But first what? The first person buried in the cemetery? Aria suggests. If there's a cemetery adjacent to Street Anthony's? There is. Dominic pulls up a map. Street Anthony Cemetery. Established 1928. Right next to the church. He looks at Aria. We need to visit, tomorrow morning. See if we can find what Lucia was pointing to. That night, Aria can't sleep. She keeps thinking about Lucia, 19 years old, newly arrived in America, terrified, and carrying secrets that could get her killed. Hiding a ledger in a cemetery, leaving cryptic clues in photographs, trusting that someday family would find what she'd buried. Around 2 a.m., Aria gives up on sleep and goes to the window. Chicago spreads below her, millions of lights representing millions of lives. Somewhere out there, the Salvino organization operates, unaware that their past is about to surface. Somewhere, Marco is sleeping in a friend's apartment, free for the first time in 8 months. Somewhere, the ledger waits in whatever hiding place Lucia chose 70 years ago. A knock on her door makes her jump. She opens it to find Dominic, also sleepless, wearing sweatpants and a t-shirt instead of his usual suits. It's the most casual she's ever seen him, and somehow it makes him more intimidating rather than less. Without armor, he's just a man who happens to run an empire. Couldn't sleep either? He asks. Too much thinking. She steps aside to let him in. What if we're wrong? What if there's no ledger, no clues, no grand mystery? What if Lucia just wanted to be left alone and all of this is us projecting meaning onto random family artifacts? Then we've spent some time getting to know each other, learned about our families, helped your brother. Not a wasted effort, even if we find nothing. He joins her at the window. They stand side by side, not touching but close enough that Aria can feel heat radiating from his body. What happens after? She asks. After we find the ledger or confirm it doesn't exist? After the Salvino situation resolves? What happens to us? What do you want to happen? Aria considers the question seriously. 2 weeks ago, she would have said she wanted to return to her life, her jobs, her tiny apartment. But that life was drowning. It was survival without hope, work without purpose, existence without actually living. I don't know, she admits. Everything's changed too fast. I don't know who I am in this new version of reality. You're someone stronger than you realize. Someone who fought for her brother when the system failed him. Someone who wore her great-grandmother's perfume, seeking strength and found a family she didn't know existed. He turns to face her. You're someone I can't stop thinking about, which is inconvenient and complicated and probably unwise. The confession lands in the space between them. Aria's breath catches. She should step back, create distance, maintain professional boundaries. Instead, she finds herself leaning closer. Why is it unwise? She asks, though she knows the answer. Because I'm dangerous. Because my world is built on violence. Because caring about you makes you a target and makes me vulnerable. His hand comes up, cups her cheek with surprising gentleness. Because I've spent 15 years not caring about anyone beyond strategic value, and you're making me remember what it feels like to want to protect someone just because they matter. Maybe I don't need protection. Maybe I need partnership. Can you handle partnership with someone like me? Someone who makes decisions you won't always agree with? Someone whose empire requires moral compromises? Can you handle partnership with someone who'll challenge those decisions? Someone who won't let you hide behind power when humanity is required? He laughs, the sound low and genuine. We'd be a disaster. Probably. Aria agrees. He kisses her. Or she kisses him. It's impossible to tell who moves first, but suddenly his mouth is on hers, and his hands are in her hair, and she's pulling him closer, eliminating space, eliminating doubt. The kiss is not gentle. It's need and recognition and two people acknowledging something that's been building since the moment he smelled her perfume and recognized impossibility. When they break apart, Dominic rests his forehead against hers. This complicates everything. Everything was already complicated. Fair point. He kisses her again, softer this time. We should sleep. Tomorrow's going to be a long day. Stay, Aria says. Not a question, not a demand, just an offer. He stays. They lie in her enormous bed, not having sex, just holding each other while Chicago sleeps around them. His heart beats steady against her back. His arm is solid across her waist. And for the first time since her mother died, Aria doesn't feel alone in the world. Tomorrow they'll search for Lucia's ledger. Tomorrow, they'll step further into danger. But tonight, she's protected not by bodyguards or security systems or strategic arrangements. Tonight, she's protected by someone who's decided she matters, who's chosen to care despite every rational reason not to. She falls asleep, breathing in his scent, expensive cologne mixed with something uniquely him, and dreams of perfume and secrets, and women who crossed oceans carrying nothing but survival and hope. Street. Anthony's cemetery is older than Aria expected. The gates are wrought iron, elaborately worked with religious symbols and dates marking its establishment in 1928. Inside, headstones stretch in organized rows, some new and polished, others weathered and tilting with age. Sophia had come prepared with cemetery records and a tablet showing the layout. The first person buried here was a child, she says, leading them through the gates. Maria Caruso, age 6, died 1928. Her grave should be near the chapel. The chapel is a small stone structure near the cemetery's eastern edge. The grave Sophia directs them to is marked by a simple headstone, weathered by 90-plus years of Chicago weather. Maria Caruso, beloved daughter, 1922 to 1928. Where the first one sleeps, Aria murmurs, standing at the grave. But how do you hide a ledger in a cemetery? It's not like Lucia could bury something in someone else's grave. Unless she didn't bury it, Dominic says. He's examining the chapel, circling it slowly. Churches and chapels often have cornerstone deposits, documents or items placed during construction. If this chapel was built around the same time as the cemetery's establishment, he finds it on the eastern wall, a small cornerstone marker. Street, Anthony Chapel, cornerstone, laid 1928, in memory of Maria Caruso. The chapel was built as a memorial to the first child buried here, Sophia says, checking her tablet. Funded by her parents, the cornerstone ceremony happened in 1929. But Lucia didn't arrive in America until 1952, Aria protests. How could she have put something in a cornerstone laid 23 years before she got here? She didn't put it in the cornerstone. She put it near it. Dominic is running his hands along the chapel's foundation. Look for loose stones, hidden compartments, anything that looks like it's been disturbed. They search for 20 minutes, checking every stone, every crack, every potential hiding place. Nothing. The foundation is solid, undisturbed. Maybe we're wrong about the location, Sophia says, frustration creeping into her voice. Aria stands back, looking at the chapel as a whole, rather than individual components. The photograph of Lucia flashes through her mind, her hand pointing, not at the chapel itself, but slightly to the side. What had she been indicating? The statue, Aria says suddenly. In the photograph, there was a statue of the Virgin Mary visible beside the church. Is there a statue here? They find it behind the chapel, a marble Mary, weathered and beautiful, standing in a small garden of stone benches and memorial plaques. At the statue's base, a small brass plaque reads, "In loving memory of Maria Caruso, may she rest in the arms of angels." Dominic kneels, examining the statue's foundation. The base is hollow. Look, there's a seam here, like it's designed to open. He works at it carefully, and after several minutes, a panel shifts. Behind it, wrapped in oilcloth and sealed with wax that's cracked with age, is a leather-bound ledger. Aria's breath stops. 70 years. 70 years this has been hidden, waiting for blood to find it. Dominic extracts it carefully, treating it like the fragile artifact it is. The leather is dry but intact. The wax seal bears a symbol Aria doesn't recognize, some kind of family crest. "We shouldn't open it here," Sophia says, scanning the cemetery. "If anyone's watching, we need to know what's in it." Dominic breaks the seal carefully, opens to the first page. The handwriting is precise, dated entries in Italian, spanning from 1947 to 1951. Names, amounts, transactions. Page after page of meticulous record-keeping documenting money movement, payoffs, trafficking operations, murders ordered and executed. "This is it," Sophia breathes. "This is everything. Names of politicians, police officials, business owners, everyone the Salvino organization paid or coerced. If this goes public, it destroys them," Dominic finishes. "Not just the current generation. This traces back to their founding operations. This is evidence of crimes that spawned everything they've built since." Aria touches the ledger with trembling fingers. Lucia kept this safe for 70 years. She could have used it, could have leveraged it, could have bought herself safety, but she didn't. She just hid it and passed down clues. Because using it would have confirmed its existence, Sophia explains. As long as the Salvino family wasn't sure whether she really had evidence, they couldn't risk eliminating her. But the moment she revealed it, she'd become a definite target, so she kept it as insurance she never cashed in. "And now it's mine," Aria says quietly. "Now I'm the one holding the weapon she couldn't use." "Now you're untouchable," Dominic corrects. "We make copies, distribute them to trusted parties with instructions to release if anything happens to you. We let the Salvino organization know you have this. They can't kill you without guaranteeing their own destruction." They return to Aria's apartment with the ledger sealed in a protective case. Sophia immediately begins photographing each page, uploading copies to secure servers, creating redundancies. "This changes everything," Sophia says as she works. "Not just for Aria's protection, but for the entire Chicago power structure. The Salvino organization has been expanding aggressively because they thought they were untouchable. This proves they're not." Dominic is on his phone, making calls in Italian too, rapid for Aria to follow. When he finally hangs up, his expression is grim. Word has already leaked. Someone must have seen us at the cemetery. The Salvino family knows we found something. How fast can you get the protection protocols in place? Sophia asks. Already done. But Aria, you need to understand what happens now. They're going to make a move. Maybe diplomatic, maybe violent, but they can't let this stand without response. As if summoned by his words, the building's fire alarm starts screaming. That's not a drill, Sophia says, already moving. That's breach protocol. Someone's in the building. Dominic grabs Aria's arm, pulling her toward the door. Safe room, now. 3rd floor, penthouse, I'll show you. An explosion rocks the building. Not the fire alarm, an actual detonation. Somewhere below them, shaking the floor beneath their feet. Elevator shaft, Sophia identifies. They're cutting off escape routes. Stairs. They run. Aria's heart hammers as they burst into the stairwell and start climbing. Behind them, she hears doors opening, confused residents emerging. Dominic shouts for them to evacuate down, away from the upper floors. On the 3rd floor, they burst into Dominic's penthouse. It's larger than Aria's apartment, more luxurious, but he doesn't stop to let her take it in. He heads straight for what looks like a bookshelf, presses something, and a panel slides open, revealing a reinforced room. Inside, both of you. He's pulling out a gun from somewhere, checking the chamber. Lock it from the inside. Don't open it until I personally give the all clear. What are you going to do? Aria asks. Whatever's necessary. He cups her face, kisses her hard and fast. Trust me, I've survived worse. He pushes them into the safe room and seals the door. Aria and Sophia are left in a space about 10 feet square, lined with supplies, weapons, and monitors showing security feeds from throughout the building. On the screens, they watch chaos unfold. Men, in dark clothing, moving through the building, systematic and professional, Dominic's security team engaging them, gunfire echoing through hallways, residents fleeing in panic. And then Dominic appears on the feed, moving with lethal efficiency. He's not just defending, he's hunting. Aria watches him drop 2 men in quick succession, move to the next threat without hesitation. He's good at this, Sophia says quietly. Better than most people realize. They see the businessman, the restaurant owner. They forget what he had to be to survive inheriting an empire at 17. The assault lasts 20 minutes. Police sirens approach. The attackers retreat, leaving 4 bodies and substantial damage. When Dominic finally opens the safe room door, he's bleeding from a cut on his temple but otherwise intact. They wanted the ledger, he says. Didn't expect this level of resistance. They'll regroup, try again. But we've made our point. They can't just take what belongs to you. Aria steps out of the safe room on shaking legs. This is what my life is now? Explosions and gunfire and hiding in reinforced rooms? Only until we leverage the ledger properly. Once they understand that killing you guarantees their destruction, the violence stops. He touches her face gently. I'm sorry. I knew they'd respond, but I didn't expect this level of aggression this quickly. What do we do now? Now we make them an offer they can't refuse. Dominic's smile is cold. We arrange a meeting. We show them exactly what we have, and we negotiate terms that ensure your safety and their survival. Mutually assured destruction, it's not elegant, but it works. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you loved this story, check out the other videos on your screen now. I think you'll really enjoy them. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. See you in the next story. The meeting is arranged for Neutral Territory, a restaurant owned by neither family, with representatives from 3 other Chicago organizations serving as witnesses and unofficial mediators. Aria insists on attending despite Dominic's protests. They need to see me, she says. Need to understand I'm not just a name on documents, not just leverage. I'm a person who controls information that can destroy them. That reality is more powerful if I deliver it myself. The restaurant is closed for the evening. Just their party and the mediators. The Salvino representatives arrive flanked by their own security. 2 men and a woman, all carrying themselves with the confidence of people accustomed to winning. The woman leads. She's perhaps 50, elegantly dressed, with cold eyes that assess Aria with clinical precision. I'm Elena Salvino. I understand you have something that belongs to my family. I have something that documents your family's crimes across 70 years. Aria corrects. It belonged to my great-grandmother, who your family terrorized into hiding. Now it belongs to me. Elena's expression doesn't change. And you think possessing stolen documentation gives you leverage? I think it gives me insurance. Aria places a tablet on the table between them. On screen, photographed pages from the ledger. These are copies. The originals are in secure locations, along with instructions to release everything to federal authorities. If anything happens to me, my brother, or anyone I care about, your organization goes down. Publicly. Permanently. Elena studies the tablet, her composure cracking fractionally. You're bluffing. These records are too old to prosecute. Maybe the specific crimes are beyond statute of limitations, Dominic interjects. But they establish a pattern. They name living descendants who inherited operations built on these crimes. They provide roadmaps for current investigations. The FBI would love this. The IRS even more so. So, what do you want? Elena asks. Money? Territory? What's your price for keeping this buried? I don't want money. I want to exist without fear. Aria leans forward. I want your organization to leave me, my brother, and everyone connected to me completely alone. Forever. No retaliation. No future moves. No revenge. In exchange, the ledger stays hidden. Your family's past remains buried. Your current operations continue undisturbed. And if we refuse, then I release everything tomorrow morning. Your family spends the next decade fighting legal battles, federal investigations, IRS audits. Your political connections abandon you. Your business partners distance themselves. Everything your family built across 4 generations gets dismantled piece by piece. The silence stretches. Elena studies Aria with reassessment visible in her eyes. You're not what I expected. Most people in your position would leverage this for wealth, power, advancement. You just want to be left alone? I want to live without looking over my shoulder. I want my brother to finish school without being collateral damage in a war he doesn't understand. I want to choose my own future instead of having it dictated by 70-year-old crimes. Aria's voice is steady. That's worth more than any amount of money you could offer. Elena looks at her associates, some silent communication passing between them. Finally, she nods. Agreed. You keep the ledger buried. We leave you alone. But understand this protection extends only as far as the leverage does. If copies surface, if information leaks, the agreement is void. Understood. Elena stands. I hope your great-grandmother's sacrifice was worth it. She spent her life in hiding to protect that ledger. Now you get to spend yours making sure it stays hidden. After they leave, the mediators confirm the agreement is binding by the standards of their world. Aria Torres is now untouchable, protected not by bodyguards but by mutually assured destruction. In the car driving back to Lincoln Park, Aria finally allows herself to feel the weight of what's just happened. It's over. Really over. The immediate threat is over, Dominic corrects. But you're connected now. To me, to this world, to power structures that don't release people easily. Even with the Salvino situation resolved, your life has changed permanently. Is that a warning? It's a reality check. I want you to have a choice, really have one. You can take your protection and Marco's freedom and walk away. Build whatever life you want without me in it. Or, he pauses, you can stay. Not because you need protection or because you're trapped, but because you choose to. Because what's between us matters more than the complications it creates. Aria thinks about the past 2 weeks. The terror and violence, yes, but also the discovery of family, the understanding of her own strength, the feeling of being seen by someone who understands power and still chooses gentleness with her. I'm not going anywhere, she says. I'm not walking away from you or from understanding where I came from or from building something that honors what Lucia sacrificed for. I'm staying. His hand finds hers. It won't be easy. Nothing worth having is. 6 months later, Aria stands in the gallery showing photographs she spent half a year creating. The exhibition is titled Blood and Perfume, A Family History, and it documents her journey from struggling waitress to inheritor of secrets spanning generations. There's the photo of herself at 8 years old that started everything. The pictures of Lucia and Isabella, sisters separated by fear and survival. Contemporary portraits of Marco, now thriving in school. And finally, photos of Dominic, not the dangerous man who runs an empire, but the person who chose to protect someone without obligation, who honored his grandmother's memory by helping her sister's descendant. The exhibition has drawn attention from art critics and historians alike. The story of 2 families separated and reunited, of a woman who protected dangerous knowledge across 70 years, of a perfume that served as both luxury and key. It's the kind of narrative that captures imagination. Marco attends the opening, uncomfortable in the gallery space but proud of his sister. Vanessa is there too, finally understanding the truth Aria had been unable to share for months. Sofia has become something like a mentor, teaching Aria to navigate the world Dominic inhabits while maintaining her own identity. And Dominic stands beside her as patrons circulate, his presence both protection and partnership. They've built something over these months, not without complications, not without arguments about the moral boundaries of his empire, but real, solid, based on choice rather than necessity. Your great-grandmother would be proud, Dominic says quietly as they watch people examine the photographs. She'd probably be terrified, Aria corrects. She spent her life hiding, and I'm displaying our history for everyone to see. You're displaying the parts that matter, the love, the sacrifice, the survival. The rest, he gestures to where the ledger remains hidden, never photographed for the exhibition, stays protected. Aria wears the perfume tonight. The original bottle, nearly empty but still potent. Its scent mingles with the gallery's atmosphere of success and celebration. She thinks about Lucia, creating this scent in Italy, carrying it to America, passing it to her daughter and great-granddaughter. A chain of women surviving impossible circumstances, protecting each other across generations. The perfume had been a key, just as Lucia intended. It opened doors Aria hadn't known existed, connected her to family, to power, to a man who looked at her and saw not someone to be used but someone to be chosen. Thank you, Aria says to Dominic. For everything, for keeping your promises, for protecting Marco, for helping me understand where I came from. Thank you for trusting me, for wearing that perfume, for walking into my restaurant and changing everything. He pulls her closer. For staying even when you could have run. They stand together in the gallery, surrounded by photographs documenting the collision of two worlds, the protection that emerged from danger, and the reckoning with a past that shaped their future. Outside, Chicago glows in the twilight. Somewhere in the city, the Salvino organization continues its operations, always aware of the ledger that could destroy them. Somewhere, Sofia manages security and strategy. Somewhere, Marco studies engineering and builds the normal life Aria's sacrifices purchased for him. But here, in this moment, Aria Torres, great-granddaughter of a woman who survived by hiding, stands in the light, celebrated and safe and chosen. The perfume that brought them together lingers in the air, carrying with it the weight of 70 years of secrets, the promise of protection, and the recognition that sometimes the most dangerous thing you can do is care about someone in a world built on not caring. The exhibition runs for 6 weeks. By the time it closes, Aria has been approached by publishers, documentary filmmakers, and historians interested in her family's story. She declines most offers, accepts a few that honor Lucia's memory, without exploiting her sacrifice. She and Dominic buy a house together, not his penthouse, not her Lincoln Park apartment, but something new, something that belongs to both of them. Marco visits often, slowly accepting that his sister's relationship with a man he doesn't fully trust is genuine and permanent. The ledger remains hidden, its location known only to Aria, Dominic, and Sofia. Its protection continues to shield Aria from retaliation, its silence purchased by mutual interest in avoiding destruction. And the perfume? Aria has it analyzed, the formula replicated by a chemist, Sofia knows. New bottles are created, but the original remains on Aria's dresser. A reminder of where she came from. A key that opened doors her great-grandmother could never walk through. Lucia survived by hiding. Aria survives by claiming her power. Both choices were right for their times. Both women did what was necessary to protect what mattered. The story that began with a perfume recognized in a restaurant ends with two families no longer separated by fear. It ends with a woman who chose danger over safety because love, messy and complicated and built on impossible circumstances, was worth more than security. It ends with Aria Torres, descended from survivors, protected by secrets, loved by someone dangerous, finally, impossibly free.